we talked about this many episodes ago. Somebody pointed out that this is the 80th live, which is a shitload of lives. But somebody asked, Al asked, have you ever encountered someone who discouraged your intense work ethic, presumably in music? Again, if I transcribed that wrong, I apologize. Yeah, totally. And actually, this is one of the first of the clips that we made that got some traction, at least on Instagram, which was, something along the lines of a career in music is a terrible decision. It's not something you can really will your way into, I don't think. You kind of have to have this obsessive thing, and you have to sacrifice a lot very often to get to the level that a lot of people think they want to be at. And I don't recommend it for everybody. So in some ways, I will not actively discourage people, but people are like, how do I become a producer? How do I become a mixer? And the answer is do it all the time at the expense of all the other things because you're obsessed with it. Like really isn't an answer beyond that. There's all kinds of tips. And yes, you should try this DAW and you could do this and maybe move to this city or maybe focus on this or whatever. And those things are all valuable. And that's kind of what we're here to do. But the idea of people discouraging work ethic, I don't know if it's so much discouraging as people just don't really understand it. I mean, there's a lot of people who just like, why would you spend that much time? It's like watching somebody comp a vocal. The amount of hours I've spent just like nudging little bits of vocals, it's tens of thousands at this point, probably. It's an insane thing to do rather than like live a life and have healthy relationships and, be a healthy person. You're hunched in front of a computer doing this for hours and hours and hours. In and of itself, I don't even really recommend it to people, but I've gotten so much joy out of it and I've been so obsessed with it and I love it so much. And there've been times when, like when I was in my mid-20s and ran out of money and it was like, man, should I really keep doing this? And the answer was like, I'm going to regret it if I don't figure out a way to do this because this is so meaningful to me and so important to me and such a part of my identity or whatever. I don't know that I want to speak of it as like some grand important thing. It's just where I was at and what I had to do and what I decided to do when shit got really difficult. So yeah, I mean, most people won't understand this thing and that's okay. And most people shouldn't live this life because it's an insane life. Like it's an insane thing to spend, I was talking to, his name was maybe Stuart White. I was hanging out with a couple of weeks ago, a great mix engineer, Beyonce's engineer and mixer. He's amazing. I'm gonna have him on here at some point. But just talking about like all of us basically took 4, 5, 6 years out of our life to just obsessively do this at the expense of everything else. You're just in the studio all the time.
That's it?
But I mean, just that's a minimum.
Jeez,
like
minimum.
At a minimum, and then you start figuring out, okay, what are my routines and what's a healthy thing look like, and how do I have a good diet and all that. But it's like it's years of your life to do this thing, and I don't recommend it to most people. But if you're already there, then then we can talk about it. But yeah, most people are going to be discouraging of it, as they should be, because it's a sensible thing to say, hey, maybe don't spend 5 years of your life for no money staring at a computer recording music that's not going to go anywhere. Like we all did that. But we have a need. I don't know. Go
I want to come at it a little bit differently because I completely agree with everything you just said. I've never met anybody that's been in my life deeply that has discouraged me from doing what I'm still doing to this day. I think it's been really clear that this is what I was going to do, and there was nobody could tell me otherwise. So therefore, the support was either there or there was just non-communication on it. Right? Nobody
they just
ever
don't
discouraged
understand.
me.
They're like, I guess, sure.
Yeah, let's see what this turns into. But this dude's gonna just keep going. But nobody also said to me, this is actually something I really wanted to talk about, which is, and this is going to be a little bit grim, I would say, but I'm so thankful I didn't grow up with my parents telling me I can be whatever I wanted to be. Because I think the truth is, and you learn later on in life that you can't be whatever you want to be. And you can't be whatever you want to be at a certain point, right? Like you're talking about the discouragement, and in your 20s, you would have regret giving up. I think there are people like the American Idol syndrome. There's an actual scientific term for this effect. I forget. Is it the Dunning-Kruger effect? It's like you think you're just like the best, and you're completely the worst at it. It's like at 32 years old, can you just become the next Adele when you're tone deaf, right? Like you get on the show and people are laughing at you because you're just not that good. Or not even that good. You're like so far, but you're psychologically, you think you're actually that good and deserving of this talent. And that's because people told you maybe you can be whatever you want to be. And this psychologically like affected you in some negative way. I think at some point, and again, I'm only doing this to have a devil's advocate position on what you were talking about, is that I think sometimes people should throw in the towel. I think it's too much, and it can affect relationships negatively from people that are actually looking out for what's best for you, that are seeing you slave, and maybe you're 15 years in, and your best case scenario is playing Hollywood nightclubs at 65, playing guitar, and maybe that makes you happy, but does it make everyone around you happy and people that want to support you? Maybe there is a time to recognize that this was too much, and LA is a city, or New York's a city, or or London, that it's so much effort to just stay afloat that there could be a better way to use your time and energy and relationships around you. So to be open to that criticism, I'm going to just throw out might be okay. And I know that's not what this podcast is about.
No,
we're supposed to encourage. I don't find the need to.
I don't think we're supposed to encourage.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's a really rich topic, because look, at some point I was like, I'm trying, something that Eric Valentine said early on when I was working under him. I think he was meeting with a band, and I was sitting there because I was his assistant. I think it was Taking Back Sunday, but it could have been somebody else, where he basically said to them, and I've said this phrase many times and quoted him, I'm trying to make the best record ever, every time. Mm-hmm. Like, it's important to have insane delusional goals as long as you understand that you're very unlikely to hit them. It's like you're going toward perfection. Yeah. I'm trying to make records that are better than the Beatles, that are all super triple diamond, or I'm trying to make the most interesting esoteric, whatever the goal is, I'm trying to go to the peak of it for this artist or for myself or sonically, knowing that essentially 100% of the time I will not hit that. And that's the counterplay to it that I think a lot of people are missing. So if you're okay not hitting those things, because you don't know where your career is going to lead, you don't know how the world is going to change. I mean, shit, look at the last 2 years. Like, you don't know how things are going to move. But if you like the process of doing it, if you're obsessed with the process, and that brings you joy and fulfillment, which is hard. I did not have that perspective until, I don't know, my mid-20s, when I had my first real crisis of like, I have no money, I have no job, like, what do I do? When you go, okay, is this thing important enough to me that if I don't hit these goals that society says of you're going to have these things on the chart, or you'll make X money or whatever, is the process of doing this worth it? And that's a really hard conversation for people to have with themselves. And I think a lot of the quote unquote delusional, I'm going to move to LA and be the most famous person in the world, which is a related conversation to this, those people lack that kind of self-analysis. And I think we all do when we're young, because that's how you're like, I have big dreams, I'm going to make crazy things. But that's what it comes down to.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. We don't have sponsors. We don't run ads. We don't have a Patreon. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks.